Hello and welcome to another episode of Bunch Formation. I am David Ubben, your host here with my co-host Chris Vanini, who is in Orlando, spent the full day at the Electronic Arts Studios home base. I don't know what they call it. It's very cool. Chris, welcome.
Everybody, welcome to the podcast. This is our third episode of the show's history. We've done it three different ways. We did it once in person on the road. We did it once at home, which was beautiful, and will be the majority of these episodes.
Yeah, but you've been out. You've been out of town. It's been weird.
I'm on the road. I'm at not only the EA Sports event, but Big 12 Media meetings, spring meetings. So we're going to talk about the video game. I played the game for several hours. Went through a big presentation of what's in it. I can't say everything, but I got a lot of good information, questions that you guys had. And we're also going to talk about the CFP and the playoff and all the drama going on there between the SEC and the Big 10 and the Big 12 and everybody else. But I'm doing good here in Orlando.
Yeah. Make sure to leave us a review. We're going to read all the 5-star reviews that we get. We're going to read them on the show. And they help us build this thing from scratch. Again, we're doing this outside of the Athletic. So we need y'all's help, and everything you do helps us. So leave us a review. We love hearing from our people. We've seen emails, tweets, all that stuff. It's been cool. Thank you guys for that. And make sure to subscribe to the show on YouTube. We'll do some more stuff on YouTube as we kind of move forward. For now, we wanted to do it for the video game folks because
we're on video right now, by the way.
Yeah.
If you're listening to this on the normal podcast feed, thank you. But we also have a YouTube channel. We're not fully doing videos yet, but we want to because video game people in YouTube love video for the video game. So we're doing that right now. But we have that going on as well.
Yeah, so thanks for reaching out to us. We got a great email from a new listener in the UK. I feel like college football is kind of growing across the pond like a little bit. We'll save that for another show. But today, first at hand, Chris, you are fresh off a day at EA's studios for a second consecutive year. We'll get to my jealousy in a second. Let's start there. So what is the experience actually like? Like, it's you, some other media folks, some YouTube streamers. So you show up in the morning or whatever. How does it work?
First off, we're going to try to keep the segments alive. So this is going to be the media scrum segment for this episode, which means I have the drops.
That's why I don't read the newspaper. Because it's garbage.
There you go.
Thank you, Mike Gundy, who is here in Orlando for Big 12 meetings. So EA Sports invites several journalists, a lot of YouTubers down to Orlando to test out college football and Madden. They've done it for a number of years. I've only done it now the last two. I'm mostly here for college football. I'm not really doing the Madden thing. Mm-hmm. They give us a several hour long presentation about all the new stuff in the game, what they've done, the work that went into it. Then we spend several hours playing it, giving them feedback. Sometimes we find a bug or two they need to fix. And last year, we had because a brand new college football game, we had so much stuff, and we had an embargo date. It was like a week after the event, so we couldn't tell you anything. It's different this year because the game's already out. The gameplay is not embargoed. There is some stuff that is embargoed for the record, but it's not really clear what exactly. So I may say some things I'm not supposed to, but enjoy it. I'm going to go over what I wrote. First off, I wrote a story in The Athletic, the 5 biggest changes to the game, along with like 10 to 15 other bullet points of thoughts I had. It went a lot longer than I initially planned to write it. But that's kind of the event. We did college football today. Tomorrow, Friday, is the Madden event.
Mm-hmm. So when they give you the presentation, I mean, what stood out? Is it a lot of the stuff that they're hitting on this year with Road to Glory, the coaches, some of the custom routes, or the zone stuff? Like, what's in the presentation that stood out to you before you got to actually play?
So we got to see the trailer like 30 minutes before it went live.
Oh,
the one with Enter Sandman, which I know not that big of a deal.
Strong trailer. It was a good trailer. I mean, it is.
I got literal goosebumps when I watched that thing. Like, because like I'm sitting here, I'm at Big 12 meetings. I've been writing about the CFP and lawsuits and all this annoying stuff around college football that's been going on. And then when you watch that trailer, you're just like,
oh, Saturdays.
This is college football.
Yeah.
That's what we did. That's what we do all this for. So the trailer was great. We can get into several things. I mean, let's start. I'll go 1 through 5 of my biggest changes to start. You ask me your questions about these, and then we'll get to more stuff later. I got a ton of questions on Twitter and Blue Sky. We're going to save those for the next episode because we can't go 3 hours long on this show. So we're going to do everything I experienced on the game here, and then we'll get into the real life college football playoff stuff. So number one, real coaches are in the game, mostly. And the coaching carousel looks to be a lot deeper.
Yeah, it was not very good last year.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so like Lane Kiffin said last year, he would do the game for free, which was smart because coaches want to be in they realize coaches want to be in this game for the recruiting and the value and all that kind of stuff. So there's more than 300 coaches in this game. That's head coaches, offense coordinators, and defensive coordinators.
The coordinators was interesting. We never had coaches in the game, but like coordinators, I mean, I don't care about this that much. I think it will make Dynasty like a little more real. As far as gameplay goes, I don't particularly care, but I think it'll be interesting, like tracking like where coaches go and be like, oh, that's kind of interesting. Yeah, so it's kind of like the transfer portal, like in last year's game. It's like seeing like, oh, this guy ended up playing there was pretty interesting. I think the coaching stuff will be kind of similar, but I don't know that it'll add that much to me playing the actual game.
They showed us an example of like future national champions and coaches in Dynasty. Joey McGuire was a coach at Texas. Sharon Moore had left Michigan to go to the NFL, and Dave Aranda had replaced him. Jason Candle had moved up from Toledo. So like all these things, it's like fun. Like you said, it's not like ultimately that big of a thing, but it's fun. It will impact your dynasty if you choose that. You can be them. You can be Dan Franklin in the game. And depending on the head coach you choose, they've got a prestige ranking, like A+ down to whatever. And they will come with certain skills like the other coaches. And also their levels are higher. I think coach levels went to like 50 last year. It's going to go to 100 this year. A lot of the real coaches are higher than that. So it's really just for fun. And to answer the main question, Bill Belichick, not in the game. No DM. Not a surprise. Bill Belichick did not do Madden. He never did that stuff.
If you choose to be James Franklin and you get heckled coming off the field, is there a button you can press to stop and confront the heckler? Is that a thing you can do?
That should be in there.
Can you fight the other coach, a la Shane Beamer, Brett Bielema? Is that
I had some Georgia fans telling me they wanted to immediately fire Mike Bobo. Not everybody will be in the game at launch. Some coaches apparently just have not replied to EA Sports asking them to be in the game. So it's not like they've said no. They just haven't. Not everybody has gotten back to them. A couple of people said no. Deion Sanders appears said no, which is not a surprise.
Kind of a little bit of a surprise. I mean, I imagine like Deion's pretty obviously guarded over his image. I think it probably would behoove him to do it, but it also behoove. I'm sure whatever they're paying the coaches, I'm sure Deion, maybe would have liked more, and he probably deserved that. So I'm not sure what happened there. If they can fix that, they should probably do whatever they can to try and amend that.
Yeah. So that's fun. It's interesting. People made a lot of jokes on Twitter. Some people said I want to get the game just to beat up virtual Orion Day. Like people will have fun with that. The image of Steve Sarkisian went around there. It didn't look great. The likeness is very hit and miss. They're not scanning these coaches.
Yeah, there's no mocap for the coaches, I guess.
No, for nobody. So it's hit and miss. Some coaches are probably not going to like how they look. Number 2 biggest change. That was really kind of a fake one.
Who's the first coach to change their Twitter photo to them hoisting a virtual national title, and why is it Lane Kiffin?
That's a good question. That's a good point. By the way, Bordeaux YouTuber did a very funny video from the photo shoot at the Rose Bowl a couple of weeks or months ago, and was talking to coaches. Hey, tips for recruiting. What's the key to recruiting? Asked Dan Lanning.
I saw this. Yeah.
Kirby Smart says it's about relationships. It's about being authentic. And then Bordeaux asks Lane Kiffin, and Lane goes, money, NIL, like that Georgia coach over there. He's just out paying everybody.
Not exactly true, by the way, just for the record. But
Lane will make everything funny and awkward. But yes. So that's coaches. Number 2, probably the biggest one. High school mode is back in Road to Glory.
I liked this in 14. It's
optional.
Very fun.
You don't have to do it, but it looks very fun. I was not a high school mode person back in the old NCAA days. It was too much.
You could create your own high school, get the right colors. You could play other city. Like they just did like cities in your home state.
Yeah. So that's kind of the same situation here. And they didn't have enough time to get it all in the first one. And they figured most people just want to do the college thing. Yeah. And they said the feedback was positive. Yeah, most people just wanted to do the college thing.
I
So you
was
don't
fine
have
with
to
that.
do
I
it.
like it, but it's not like
So-
a huge deal.
Now I played it briefly, and because I played it, I'm allowed to talk about it. It's kind of a weird how that went. It's very fun, very creative. So you pick 10 schools that you're interested in, and you are
Okay.
playing essentially 5 high school weeks.
Do you
So
get
you're
a
not playing-
graphic of your 10 schools, your top 10?
Yes.
Oh,
you
really? I
pick
was
your 10.
kidding.
So like you select the schools and you have your 10, but they're not like necessarily in an order. And
Yeah.
what you're trying to do is get tape points, or tape score is what it is.
Okay.
And once you have a certain number of points, you will get an offer. But not every school has the same level of points. The bigger the school,
Sure.
the higher that's going to have to be. Also depends on their depth chart and if what else they've recruited. But so
This
you
sounds
play
good.
you play 5, I think it was 5 weeks, but the weeks aren't games, they are tasks. There's a couple of tasks for you to do, like complete a touchdown on a lob pass. And if you do this, you get points. And depending on the school, you can get more points than other schools that really want to see that.
I'm not crazy about this.
Sometimes coaches will give you a challenge, like just Florida wants to see if you can do this, and you'll get like 6x points. You can get like 50 points or 200 points depending on how big the thing is.
See, now, I don't know why they did that. I like how they do it like on 2K. So like that's unrealistic because the coaching staff is like not going to do that. Whereas on like 2K, when you have like the My Player mode, you get like points for like just playing winning basketball. Like, oh, you set a screen, or you like you stop the ball. You like cut, not all these things that like are big time, like big momentum plays, but just like playing the right way.
Mhm.
And I feel like it'd be more realistic. First of all, I don't love the moments. I wish it were just games. But then it was like, oh, you like made the right read. Like that's more what coaches are going to look at. And then like obviously there's the physical skills and stuff. But
Yeah,
I don't love like these tasks. That sounds kind of
So you have like a
like
certain number
silly.
of you have like a certain number of drives, I think, to kind of get some of this stuff done.
Mhm.
So it's not like just one play you got to do or you don't do it. But you pick your star rating like before, but you can rise and fall. Like you can pick yourself as a 5-star, but if you're not doing well on the tasks, you're not going to be a 5-star the whole
Mhm.
time. You're doing your senior year. So that's interesting. And then when you get an offer, first thing is you can get a better offer from the same school. So this is kind of the stand-in for NIL.
The
They're not
NIL
off-
stuff. Okay.
They're not offering money. There's no dollars. Part of the reason is because the house settlement isn't even done. Like, yes,
Yeah.
schools will be paying players, but that's not official yet. They had to make the game. And you'll get skill bonuses for your college player. Like you'll get more like coach trust, more brand, more this. Like
I like
can get a
that.
cer-
Okay.
And if you don't commit and they want you and you keep putting up more tape points, the offer will increase. Like they will want you to then even more so play, which is pretty cool. Eventually,
Is there a
at
game
one-
mode in which your dad can hold the coaching staff hostage for more money? Is that can you do that?
that's Portal era. That's Portal mode. We'll have to get into
Okay.
in the future. You can commit, you can decommit. But you can also see who else your teams are recruiting.
Oh,
So
I like that.
if you're like a quarterback and they're recruiting another quarterback and he commits, suddenly it's harder for you to get there. It's hard.
Yeah.
The threshold for the points is going to be
But if you
higher
see they have
for
like
you.
2 other 5-stars, maybe you don't love that 5-star receivers. Maybe you don't love that school, but you're like, well, I'm gonna have some dudes to play with.
So, like,
that's pretty realistic. That
you may
happens.
want to commit early and get that spot. So it's an interesting. I think it's a pretty cool dynamic. And then they have the 3 hats like they showed. You'll eventually pick a top 3 and then pick a school. I think that's when you sign. I think is how it works. And you can do some fun stuff with the hats. So they said
Really,
the goal.
that's pretty cool. That's awesome.
They said the goal is for high school mode to last you like an hour to 75
okay.
minutes. So it's not like
right.
the whole game, but that's if you want to do it. So
I'm
going
gonna do it. That sounds fun. I liked the high school mode. You know, obviously last year, just the game being back for the first time in over a decade, like, you know, I wasn't gonna pick that many nits. But I'm glad the high school's back. I liked it. It's fun.
Yeah, and there's some more stuff in there, like when you're in college, like coach happiness, not just coach trust, because I think they felt that last year, if you got to a certain point, like if you became the starter, you like wouldn't lose the job, you couldn't go down. So now there's things that can knock you down a couple pegs, make it a little bit harder. So it sounds pretty cool. That's kind of probably the biggest new game mode. I think again, I'm not usually the high school guy, but I thought that was pretty cool. Number 3, this is a big one for me personally. Online Dynasty crossplay.
Yeah, this is a little bit techie, but I like last year we were having to coordinate because you bought a system and like some people
I've got
were
an
having
Xbox,
different systems. I have a PS5. Yeah,
for people who don't know, crossplay means Xbox and PS5 can play each other online. You could obviously do that for games already. Madden has it for franchise mode. They couldn't fit it in for the first year of College Football 25. I have an Xbox because I only got a console specifically for college football. I'm not playing any other games. I didn't want to spend $500, $600 on a PS5 just so I could do Dynasty mode with you guys. Because you and Ari and most of the other guys, Max.
We have a side chat of a lot of people in the business that love the video game. And I think we're going to have a pretty big Dynasty that starts going here soon. So.
That'll be fun. But a lot of you guys are PS5. And so we didn't. Now that we can crossplay, I think we're actually going to try to do an online Dynasty. So that will be fun. So again, I got my Xbox Series S off of Facebook Marketplace for like $200. Like I didn't want to spend a ton of money because it's just for this thing. So I figured it was gonna. I kind of knew crossplay Dynasty was gonna come a year later. So
yeah,
that's good. Simple thing. This is a big one. This is number 4. You will love this one, David. Formation subs and dynamic subs. This was the kind of the biggest in-game request they got. Formation subs, for people who don't know, you can set certain players to come in the lineup for certain formations depending on what you pick.
I was playing with K-State last year. I had 2 backs. I'd play with DJ Giddens and Dylan Edwards. They're extremely different backs. And you don't want to tip what you're doing, but I had to just set Dylan Edwards like my 3rd down back, but I would have liked to have specifically been able to do it easily. There was no easy way to do it. So I'm glad this is there.
So you can do that in the pause menu and set that all up. I think Dynasty, you might be able to do it on your normal depth chart. I wasn't able to do that. Then there's also dynamic subs, which is subbing in game without having to pause and go and change something. So
they have that in they have that in FIFA. So I'm glad.
So you'll use the D-pad, and they showed a little screen will come up on the side, and you can see all your players and what their wear and tear is and injury if they have it, and you can flip through guys. So all right, next play, someone else is coming in at cornerback.
Can we get a cut scene of the position coach pushing them on the field? That's what we need. I like that.
We need, or if it doesn't happen in time, you can you should be able to fake the injury, right?
Yeah. I will say I did an embed with Chattanooga football in 2019. So I was on the sidelines for the game. And that was the first time I'd been in the box, with a coaching staff, a team before. And one of the main things I learned about game day operations there, I learned a lot, obviously studying and preparing for a game, for a team, preparing a game plan, all that stuff. One of the things I learned is how much of the conversation is just getting people in the right place. We need to let field goal, it's 3rd down, punt team, everybody be ready. And getting the personnel is 75% of the conversation on the sideline.
That is why there's 50 people on the sideline, because they have to tell everybody they have that grid. If anybody's been on the sideline of a game, there's that grid where they generally want that group to come out, or if someone's injured and you got to get someone else in, it's just frantic all the time. If you ever wonder how could they run that play without that guy in the game?
It's frenzied.
It's a lot harder than you think. So yes, that's going to be pretty realistic. They also have auto sub sliders. So if you say, if my running back is at a 90 wear and tear, he's automatically going to come out. You can slide it down and up, so you can set that by position, which is really cool. If you want to keep your team fresh and make sure wear and tear guys aren't in there very long. Number 5, and we'll kind of use this to kind of branch off into some other stuff, but the gameplay a lot smoother, and a lot of the little annoyances are gone. And
I saw your note about more catches in traffic. That's what I was going to say.
So when you boot the game up last year, you're like, holy crap, all this stuff I've never seen. For college, it's a whole new experience. You open up this game and you're like, it's mostly the same. There's little things, whatever. But the more you play, the more I played through a couple of hours, the more I realized those little things. And it was more than an hour in, I was like, my guys aren't dropping the ball every time they get hit now.
Yeah.
Catches in contact. And I asked the developer, and they were like, "Yeah, that was a big thing. There were way too many drops. We didn't want that to happen. So that will be much easier." Ubin, you had a lot of frustration when you and I would play. Your guy would just drop a first down catch on a third down because my guy tapped him or something like that. So that is improved. Quarterback scrambling is improved. It's much smoother. It's not like the quarterback is like this and then stands up and then he has to go.
Pursuit angles. The CPU pursuit angles were a problem last year.
I haven't played enough to really say. I mean, they said the AI is better. You know, it's supposed to be better. So I haven't played it enough to like really tell you how. Everybody might have a different opinion on it, but they do have the physics-based tackling that kind of was in Madden. They brought it over. They said it's gone up substantially. Couple of the other things. So a cool thing, defensive linemen now can do something called block steering, which is you can send an offensive lineman in a certain direction that you want to push him, especially like for a run play. If you're going to rush outside and then you realize it's a run play, you use the left joystick and you can turn it.
Okay.
You drive the offensive lineman the other way. So took a little bit to kind of get used to it, but that was fun. And running the ball was my favorite part of 25. Like it was so smooth. It's even better. Run after catch was smoother, stuff that you would expect. And this is something I think you will like, Ubin. This is something you love to. You're a big pre-snap, disguise coverages, that type of stuff. You can now set custom zones for DBs, kind of like a receiver can set custom stems and stuff like that. So you can do that. You can like commit to certain routes. And like this
is a must-have. This is a must-have. How does the guessing the play work? I saw you mention that in the article.
Yeah.
So here's the problem with this is so you play online. I noticed that as you worked your way up the road to glory or whatever they called it, the path of
road to the CFP.
Yeah. As you worked your way up, there wasn't a lot of guys like cheesing plays, like running the same stuff. And then when you got to Heisman mode, you encountered a lot of those guys. And like, I can't defend 11. You can't run 11 guys at one time. And if you have a play that has like 3 or 4 good options on it, like people can just run the same stuff. These are called psychopaths. They should be in jail. I don't know how that's fun. But like, so when you can guess a play, like how does that functionally work? Because I think
so. I tried to get it. I couldn't quite get it working a ton, but I think the general idea is like if you're controlling a cornerback, you can guess like a slant.
Okay. That would be very helpful.
That's my understanding. I wouldn't say 100%. I know that for sure because it was trying a lot of different stuff. But I think that's a general idea because they were like, if you guess wrong, guys can be wide open.
Toasted. But I like the idea of being able to set some guesses. Like you could do that quickly pre-snap and just like get your guys and say, hey, like they're running the same play. The guy in the middle, you know, the slot guy's running a deep post. We got to come back on the right. Like if they're running the same play 8 times and you're cheating those routes, then you can help stop stuff without having to control 8 guys at one time. I'm glad that they added this.
You can also do stunts and twists. You call that with the play. So like if you're, you know, your triangle play on the play sheet, you press and hold, it then gives you like a list of different twists that you can do. So you can call those like before you call the play, which is kind of cool. So there's a lot more different things you can do. Speaking of the AI, one of the things they said that it may not matter to you as much, but for people who play the computer AI will be able to disguise coverages more. And they kept using the example of Texas, Georgia last year, a game that I covered. There were a couple of plays where Georgia comes out in a totally different front to disguise something, and they got 2 big plays. I think one of the ones was one that knocked Quinn Ewers out of the game the first time. Texas got eaten up by that, and they loved that. And so that's they have that will be in the game
with the stadium pulse. If your crowd is ranked high enough and there's a really bad call, can your crowd throw trash onto the field and get the call reversed? Is that a thing you can do?
I did suggest that as an option. They said no.
Okay.
But so okay. Now I got a lot of other things. I'm just going to list some stuff off. You tell me what you think.
Okay.
Oklahoma. A lot of fun. They might be the most popular team. John Mateer, really fun to play with. Jaden Ott, really fun to play with. They may be the cheat team this year. Stadiums.
A lot of speed back there.
There's more renovated stadiums. They got the new Florida State.
Are we getting the Hawaii Rec League stadium out there? Still no?
I think they might. They were what, like kind of a generic stadium or something. I think.
Yeah,
in the
they
last
did
one.
like a generic last year because they're playing in that weird like
They're playing on like a
I don't-
soccer
it's
field.
like it's really small.
But I'm guessing it's still generic because we don't have the Northwestern is still the old Ryan Field. It's not the cool Lakeside Stadium, which would have been really cool. That is not it.
I don't know how hard it is to program a stadium in, so I'm not going to call them out on that. But it would have been cool to see those.
It took them several years. That's why the game got delayed a year because it takes a while to do all that. There's more bowl stadiums, not all of them. There's no Ireland. They don't have every NFL stadium, but that is the goal at some point. Again, I don't know how.
Yeah, I think
it
wouldn't
be too hard,
over
but
the NFL stadiums. But
they want to eventually get all the NFL stadiums over there. Another big one, Trophy Room is back. That was something a lot of people in Dynasty. You don't, but like a lot of people were like really wanted it, and so like you can see the rivalry trophies, all that stuff. You can see the history of the trophy too. If it's like an award, you can see who won the Doak Walker Award every year. They're trying to find ways to use the game to educate fans to college football for people who come to the game but don't follow college football. Like that's why and the guys at EA love it. I love it too. The 2K My Eras thing where you can like do old you can like play NBA basketball in the 70s. Like it's a cool thing. So this isn't that. It's kind of impossible to do. But speaking of rivalry games, those games and night games have a greater impact on stadium pulse.
Okay, so that's cool. That makes sense. Mm-hmm.
And if you're on the road and you make a big play, it will drop it down more, and they'll have to build it back up. So there's.
I think that was built in like a little bit last year.
Yeah,
maybe when you started taking. I noticed that when you start taking control of games, it would help.
But you can silence them
neutralize that
quicker. Yeah. I think it kind of seems like
that seems pretty realistic. So.
Also, it will be sponsored by Lowe's, if you care.
I don't, but whatever. 2 quick questions for the online stuff.
Go ahead.
We're still not doing custom playbooks online?
No. I asked.
And there was no, they don't, what was so the immediate feedback of the online games going from 5 minutes to 3 was like furious. Like I remember getting some text from Ari last year. They was like, this game's ruined. Ari. It's like I'm with him on this. I don't like that. Like
Ari
a lot of the game is time management, but so we're still doing 3 minutes.
Yes, they said a lot of people like Ari didn't like it, and then
I don't like it.
And then
I don't like it. I don't like it.
I haven't actually asked Ari, our good friend Ari Wasserman, but Ben Hauermiller, one of the game designers. I was with Ari. Ari angrily texted him about the 3-minute thing last year. But he said Ari came around to it and liked 3 minutes.
It's not terrible. Like you can still play. I just don't like how much of the game is time management. And you play these guys that can take up a whole half with a drive. You just put chew clock on and you get a 12-play drive. And it's like, well, this is stupid. Like now the whole game is like 3 drives. I don't like that.
I did ask about the playbook thing too, because that's a big one for you.
Mm-hmm.
The reasoning is they don't want someone to like take Alabama and use Air Force's playbook and just kind of do it.
That's the same reason they gave last year. Whatever. Like, my custom playbook that I built might be online because I put it online and downloaded it for another system, but I'm not going to share the username for that.
So they were like, look, if you're going to be, Michigan State on the game, they want you to be Michigan State. They want you to be Alabama. They don't want you to be Jalen Milroe, essentially. And they feel like that opens I'm not saying I agree, because playbook, frankly, is a big factor in who I choose to pick.
Yeah.
And as I was playing, I was like, I don't like this team's playbook. I'm not going to be like that's kind of a big thing for me. So, Road to CFP is still the same. A couple of tweaks, I can't reveal all of it, but the main question you had there, if nothing's changed, I think it's fine that I say that that didn't change. That's not a new thing. Dynasty mode protected games are back. Not back, but they were supposed to be in last year. We wrote that they were in the game last year, and then they weren't in the game.
Yeah, the Dynasty scheduling got a little wonky. I was in year 5. And I had like 8 road games. And it was broken. I was like, okay, this isn't that big of a deal, but like it's annoying. So so there's a glitch.
That's one of the reasons they pulled protected games. It was very buggy, but I think they say you can. It looked like you can do 2 protected games, which
Okay.
was I think was going to be the case. Wear and tear is going to be a lot bigger. You now have a season health meter where if you run out of season health, like you can't really recover. So you got to
okay.
kind of watch that. It's in Road to Glory and Dynasty.
Mhm.
So if you've got high, so it'll go down throughout the season. It doesn't mean you can't. It's supposed to go down, but you got to make sure you don't run out of it. It impacts.
I kind of liked it
ability
because
to recover.
I was doing Dynasty last year and I was Minnesota and my O-line was terrible. And I was just spamming Darius Taylor and I had to legitimately change how I called plays because he was getting too worn down. I was like, I can't give him the ball 30 times a game. Like he's just getting run over. So
yeah, a big part. The menu screen is no longer going to be just that drum line.
Yeah, I saw that was in the blog they put up this morning. I was like,
yes,
thank
God. They're gonna have marching band covers of real songs. Industry Baby is one, which kind of sounds like the theme song. There's a Jelly Roll song. I think Swag Surfing. They said the Auburn song, and then kind of implied that that's what it was.
But there's also Jelly Roll. I don't get Jelly Roll, but okay.
I mean, whatever. He's fine. There's been worse. Real songs was a big part of this too for gameplay. Enter Sandman. Obviously for Virginia
in the
Tech.
trailer, yeah.
And they have a cool feature, a cool thing where fans can sing like after the music stops. So that's what they do with Michigan. They do Mr. Brightside.
Worst tradition in college football, by the way. I'm so out on the stupid Mr. Brightside. It's terrible. It's like
claiming Sweet Caroline.
Yeah, I'm a tradition respecter in this house. Terrible tradition. Get it out.
It's our generation's Sweet Caroline.
Yeah, it's terrible.
But it's cool. Like you hear it's being played and singing, and then like you get to start the quarter, the music stops, but the fans are still singing it. Okay. So that's cool. Like that's real. Like that.
Could they sing a different song? Can you change that from Mr. Brightside?
I mean, I don't think you can ask the fans to sing "Fiend" by Travis Scott, but that song is also in the game. Seven Nation Army is in the game.
Okay, now that's like in every stadium in America. That's a nice poll. Yeah.
Okay. Shipping Up to Boston, I heard at Notre Dame.
Okay, yeah.
And then they got 2001: A Space Odyssey for South Carolina's intro. South Carolina's like whole intro is.
Yeah, I mean, Sandstorm is iconic. Cool. Talk about new college football traditions. That is probably my favorite new college football tradition.
Yes.
They had, Darude come and like play it live, like at the stadium a couple of years ago. Awesome. That's cool. Chris, I'm very jealous that you got to do this. I have to say, people on our staff is a running joke making fun of me for having the Dion beat, which like Stu just asked me to do. Like, I don't know, like a week after Dion got hired. And I don't know how you got the EA, like the college football beat, because I think part of it was last year. I think I was on paternity leave, and that was maybe part of it. Because I feel like my love of this game is as high as anyone's. I feel like I went from being I'm basically like the Rudy. My skills are not what they once were because I don't have the time to invest in this game. But I really did enjoy 25, and I'm jealous that you got to go down there another year. That experience seems very, very cool. I'm excited.
I planned that whole thing out. Like 2 years before the game came out, I was like, let me do a story on why the game went away. and I did that story knowing when I did that, I would have the inside track to make the game one of my beats.
That's smart. That's smart.
And it did. And we had some other people who were like consulted on the game. I mean, Ari's admitted he consulted on the game, and some of them signed like NDAs, and so they kind of took themselves out of the running. I didn't want to do that. I didn't want to be a consultant on the game.
They never called me. I was very sad.
I wanted to report on it, so I stayed away from all that. And they didn't break their NDAs. They didn't tell me anything. It's already passed, but they're good. One other thing I forgot to mention, I threw in late. Dynamic lighting. So the lighting for the game, like when
I'm playing all the Rose Bowls at noon, just for the record.
The Rose Bowl sunset, which you hate and is stupid, it is in the game. If you do I think it's like a 3:30 Rose Bowl stadium game, by the time you get to that second half,
oh my gosh! Sunset.
So it's not only based on time of day, like it's going to rotate. It's also based on your location. So like the sun might set farther depending on where you are in the time zone and stuff like that. So that's pretty cool. A lot of people really wanted that. I got a lot of people.
It doesn't do much for me. I like to play all my games at night because I don't like the shadows in the stadium. Like I find
Yeah.
that annoying. Like I'd prefer to
Yeah.
play it overcast or at night because the shadows are just annoying to me.
Yeah.
So yeah, I don't know. I don't care about the dynamic lighting, but I did see a lot of people like, "Oh, finally!" I'm just like, "All right, y'all are nerds."
The stuff that people are dude, when I wrote it last year, I got so many questions about can you edit the equipment of real players? To which my reaction was,
Get a life.
who cares? Like, I don't. But like a lot of people want to do that, and so I don't know yet how much editing of players you can do. That didn't come up. You obviously couldn't do it in the first game for the most part.
Yeah,
They don't want you to change. I think you might have been able to do equipment, but you couldn't do skills.
yeah.
I don't know if you can or can't this year. There's still no create a recruit. There's just Road to Glory.
Yeah.
Again, that's not a new thing I'm spoiling. It's just not there, or at least they didn't
Yeah.
tell us. So
Mhm.
that is that. Pubbin, do you have more questions?
No, I think you covered it. I'm excited about this game. Like last year's game wasn't perfect. I hope that they have improved the zone defense AI in passing. It was a problem last year.
Zone defense, how? Like they just weren't good coverage.
Guys are very smart. Like you'd play match zones, and like your guys just wouldn't play match. Like there'd be like a tight end sitting in the hole, and your linebackers like staring at him 4 yards away, and it's like, go cover him. What are you doing? Like, and so like defense was very hard to play last year, especially if you're at a talent deficit. It was almost impossible at times. And I did find like I didn't play a lot of man in the old games because it didn't work very well. But I did find like as I improved my dynasty and like if my guys were better, I was just playing like a ton of man and it would work pretty well. But online, you can't really still do that because if teams see man, like you're cooked. Just like smash the run mesh button and it's tough. So if you're gonna play man, you kind of have to hide it. But you know. Like the zone defense was probably the biggest issue last year, and the things that like impacted the game because your guys just were not very smart. But hopefully that's improved. Some of those custom zones might help a little bit. So
a big part they didn't emphasize, like they realized playing defense was really hard. So they're trying to make it a little bit better and easier while also giving the hardcore gamers more customization for things you can do. So
yeah.
We'll need more time. This is not a full review of the game. I have not played the full game. It's not even the finished product. That'll come closer to launch. But that's what they were giving to us. I'm trying to think if there's anything else notable. We got a lot of individual questions on things. We're going to answer them in the next episode because we're going to have to move on to some other stuff.
Chris, let's talk CFP fights. Should we?
Yeah. So that'll do it for the video game stuff. For everybody who's listening to this podcast for the first time, either because it's only our third episode or because you came here specifically for the video game, thank you. Please stay here. Learn about the rest of college football. Again, we're going to talk more about this game leading up to the launch. Read my story on theathletic.com. Have a lot of stuff there.
I'm going to link it in the show notes, of course. I read it before we jumped on here. It was a good job, Chris.
Yeah, they were The Athletic was thinking about putting it up in the morning, and I was like, "Nah, we got to put it up tonight, Thursday night live, because people want it. People want to know." So, I hit it early, but we got. We're gonna move. Okay, we're gonna move to the Say What segment now, and you know what that means.
I don't know where Lou Holtz is right now.
Is that virtual Ryan Day or is that real?
That's
Ryan
virtual
Day?
Ryan Day calling out virtual Lou Holtz.
I want virtual classic coaches, by the way. I want to see Lou Holtz and Bobby Bowden. Now that would add something to the game for me. If I'm playing classic mode and we got Bobby Bowden running around, we got Lou Holtz, checking out. We got Woody Hayes out here punching people. Like that would do a lot for me, I feel like.
Something I forgot to mention. They do have legendary players in Ultimate Team, which is really cool. I wish we could get legend teams in regular games or Dynasty. Can't really do that, but I don't do Ultimate Team. But
I don't do Ultimate Team.
A lot of people do, and it went,
and they're all 11.
It went way past their expectations, what they thought. So yeah, they're all younger people, but that's how they play the game. And so a lot of people think, oh, it's microtransactions, got to take as much money as you can. No, like kids love that type of style. So it's not for me, but we'll get into it more later. So with that, Ubben,
we got a CFP brouhaha coming in here.
So
we're going 16. It seems like that's kind of done unofficially.
For a few reasons. So SEC had their meetings this week in Destin.
Which, by the way, if you've not been, is very funny. So, like, the Big 12 used to do their meetings like airport hotels, which can be a pretty sterile environment.
Not if you live in Dallas, and that's where they go.
But it's like they always tuck it like under. It was like never like you didn't run into like weird people. Destin, it's just like at a resort. There's like there's like kids running around with like pool floaties and stuff. It's very funny. Like, it's just you're in Destin, you're just chilling. So
the SEC has their spring meetings. And one of the main topics is the playoff and what kind of model do they want? Because when the playoff expands to 16 in 2026, the Big Ten and the SEC control what happens. And they're not totally on the same page. The Big Ten, which had its meetings with no media availability, they want the auto bids. They want the 4-4-2-2-1-1-3. So they can grade a play-in tournament. Your third place, your sixth, your fourth place, your fifth. You make more money that way. You get more teams involved. Nobody else would be able to do that. But the SEC did a lot more than that this week. It was a lot of complaining. A lot of people upset that Alabama didn't make the playoff last year.
I can't believe we're relitigating this. It was insane complaints. Like
a lot of complaints that the committee doesn't think strength of schedule correctly, that they basically just a lot of whining. And I'm curious, Oven, as someone who lives in SEC country and kind of covers that a lot. Your first general impression of kind of how this week has played out.
I don't listen. I get like, okay, wanting to talk about the selection committee and its role and like what auto bids might change to it. Let me read you this quote from Greg Sankey talking about the selection committee criteria, which I think they are going to maybe want to try to change. I do think there is need for change. How do you explain some of the decisions made? What decisions are we talking about? This is insane. Like the decisions. So let's see the three most controversial decisions. Okay. The first one, putting in Ohio State over Baylor and TCU, very defensible, 2014, very defensible. Ohio State wins the national title, which sort of whitewashes that decision anyway, whatever. It was fine. Florida State getting locked out as an ACC champion, undefeated because of Jordan Travis's breaking leg in 2023.
Yeah.
Alabama goes in instead. Alabama does lose to the eventual national champion Michigan in overtime. Very good game. I mean, I just think conceptually, even with an injury, leaving out an ACC champion that had not lost a game is absurd to me. That is by far the most ridiculous decision. The SEC, kind of irrelevant in the first one, huge benefactor of the second one. And then last year, like people wanted to do some like revisionist history with SMU and Indiana talking about these two teams and sort of, relitigate Ole Miss, Alabama, and South Carolina. First of all, Ole Miss is the most deserving team out of that group. They had quality wins. They had some weird losses, obviously. Everybody did.
They lost to Kentucky, who had one win in SEC play, 4-8.
Bad loss.
One win, and that one win was Ole Miss. It was bad.
Yes, but the Alabama conversation is absurd, and they didn't help themselves in the bowl game. They played full strength against a heavily opted out Michigan team, and that was one of the funniest games of the year. They played terrible. They lost that game. Had some horrendous turnovers. They did not score a touchdown against a really bad Oklahoma team. Lost to a very average Vanderbilt team that was better than people thought, but still got bullied by that team. And they beat Georgia. That's kind of the one thing that they had. What are we even talking about? So this idea that the selection committee has not done the SEC justice, and that strength of schedule is being factored in. Those teams that we all talked about had 3 losses. We're talking about them in comparison to a 1-loss Indiana team that did not have a lot of quality wins and a 2-loss SMU team that also was a little bit light on the wins. The reason why they're even talking about them is because of the strength of schedule, but you lost 3 games. This is crazy that the SEC, this revisionist history of the committee hasn't treated us right. The committee's been perfect for you. What are you talking about?
So Alabama was 9-3, ranked 11th. You know who they were ahead of?
Illinois is another team that we're not talking about in this discussion, by the way.
Well, hold on. Alabama was ranked ahead of 11-2 Arizona State, which won its conference. Alabama's ahead of 10-2 Miami. Alabama's ahead of Ole Miss and South Carolina. They're ahead of 10-2 BYU. Alabama's the highest ranked 3-loss team.
Yeah.
By quite a bit.
The complaining about the committee is insane.
Indiana,
Like they've been treated perfectly fairly.
Indiana 11-1, behind 2 lost Georgia, 2 lost Texas, 2 lost Penn
Yes.
State, 2 lost Ohio State, 2 lost Tennessee. They're behind
Yes.
5 2-loss teams.
What are we talking about, SEC? This is insane. I feel
And
like I'm
so-
going nuts. Like the committee is taking the strength of schedule into account. I feel like what the SEC wants is just like the committee to say, well, it doesn't matter what your record actually was. You played all these tough teams. We're just going to put all your teams that are even close to the playoff in the playoff because you guys played a tough schedule, and we've decided that all the other teams, if they had to play your schedule, they'd have a worse record. That's basically what they're wanting. And it's like, no, that's just not how this works.
So how this plays into expansion is a few things. One, the SEC is not – they're still torn on going to 9 conference games. They still play 8. The administrators – and a lot of the people have agreed, hey, if we do the auto bids, we get at least 4 guaranteed spots and the 3 at-larges are open, then we'll go to 9 conference games.
And ESPN has basically said that they're willing to pay more if they go to 9. That was on last year, the last 2 years, that's been kind of up for debate, but that's officially now.
That is the pitch for the SEC, and some administrators, ADs, like it. But some people who don't like it are the SEC coaches who understand that this is a bad look, who don't like being guaranteed spots, who want to play it out on the field and then have a committee pick them instead of somebody else. Like it's weird that the SEC coaches are kind of like the caretakers here. Like they want the challenge. They don't want to knock everything else away. And so this all plays together because the Big Ten has like hinted and kind of, they're quiet, but they put it out there like, we'll do a different playoff model if the SEC goes to 9 games. And the SEC saying we won't go to 9 games until we have the CFP model set. So it's like we're trying to do 2 things at once here. And here's how this plays into the Big 12. So I'm here at Big 12 meetings. A couple weeks ago, the Big 12, the P4 commissioners met in Charlotte. All the commissioners, Greg Sankey, Tony Petitti, Brett Yormark, Jim Phillips, met to talk about it. And the ACC and Big 12 pitched them on a couple things. One of them, a 4-4-3-3-1 model. Basically,
I hate these just because it's hard to keep track of.
Basically,
the
like
numbers,
Big Ten, SEC, you guys can have your 4 auto bids. How about we have 3? Big Ten, SEC said no. What are you talking about? So they've said, okay, how about 5 plus 11, which is basically just expands the current playoff model. 5 highest conference champions get a spot, then 11 at large bids.
Yeah,
and the pitch here is. The reason is the Big 12 and the ACC know they cannot do the auto bid thing, even if it would help them, because guaranteeing 2 bids for both those leagues is probably more than they would get otherwise. That's the sell to them. But they understand if we lock ourselves into being guaranteed on paper fewer bids than the Big Ten and the SEC, then this is just a farce and it's a matter of time until they're off doing their own thing. So for the pitch so I come to Big 12 and I start talking to people, and it's very clear they are on message. We want 5 plus 11, even if it doesn't help us, because
it's
SEC,
a perception thing.
It's a perception thing. So the message is like it's more fair to do 5 plus 11, and the pitch to the SEC is like, you guys might get 6 teams in. Isn't that really the way you want to go? Not this play-in tournament type of stuff.
Decide it on the field. Don't decide it in the rule book. I
talked to Brett Yormark. I talked to Utah's AD Mark Harlan, and I was like, are you concerned if you do a 5 plus 11 and that just puts more SEC teams in and Big 12 still only gets 1? And they said, that's fine. You know what? Then we have to do better. We have to go win more games. And so because the Big Ten has been pretty locked in on this auto bid. So the Big 12 and the ACC are trying to convince the SEC to not do that. We've basically got 2 sides fighting over Greg Sankey, trying to pull him in the other direction, like one of those like romantic comedies. They both got him by the arm. Come join us and pick our side. So that's why everything is kind of around the SEC and what they do. But there's like several things going on at once behind all of that. But that's what's going on at these meetings. That's why people are saying the things that they're saying about the CFP. It's a mess. What do you want? So like a couple playoff meetings ago, me and Heather Dinich are sitting outside the meeting. Some of the commissioners like walk out and they look at us and they go, what do you guys want the playoff to be? And I was like, that means this meeting's not going very well first.
Yeah.
Second, Dave, what do you want the playoff to be?
I mean, listen, I'm on record. I'm an 8-team guy, but
Well,
I'm
we're not
also
going back.
I know.
We're not
I'm a
going
realist.
backwards.
I'm a
From
realist. I'm a
from where we are
realist.
now with 12
Yeah.
to whatever. What do you want?
If we're gonna have to go 16, which it seems like we're
no.
going to.
I'm not saying we have to go 16. I'm saying, what do you want? If you could do
No,
anything
because we
12
can't.
or more.
No, we can't do that because if we
Give
want what
me
I
give me
want, then I
both. Give
want
me
8.
both.
I want
No,
8.
I'm saying okay, fine. Then give me whatever.
Okay. Well, no, we're gonna go 16. So I'm gonna say this is what I want. I would lean toward 5-11. Part of me wonders if I'm biased toward that because the math is simpler. I don't have to remember a number sequence. That's very confusing.
Well, we're currently at 5. We're currently at 5-7. If that helps.
Yeah,
We're
no,
at
I like
5+7.
the 5-11 because I think that it leaves a lot of interpretation open. I think it still leaves the importance of the conference championships. I do think you still have an issue. The issue with the 5-11 is the same thing I wrote about coming off the SEC championship. I've talked about it on here. Is the SEC and Big Ten playing championship games between two teams that are already in the field, and especially in the 16 team, might already have double buys, maybe even locked in.
Well, that's
It doesn't-
another part we haven't really talked about.
Yeah,
that
it doesn't
the
make
16
sense
model,
for them to play.
The 16
and
model
so
is
that's
going
a
to
problem,
it's going to create the double buys because there's not
which
enough
I like.
room on.
I like the double buy for the record.
I hate it. You're going to go so long between some teams.
I don't
playing.
care. That's the value of the regular season. If you don't want to,
That's what I thought. But then all the teams that got the buys this year lost. So I don't know.
Yeah, but that was because of the seeding issue.
No, not all.
We didn't have teams.
All of them.
It was Texas was the only one. Well, no, Texas played. I mean, what team didn't play well coming out of the bye? Like they were fine.
Georgia, but they didn't have their quarterback.
Georgia didn't have their quarterback. I like the double bye because that's the most valuable thing that you can have, and that's how you value the regular season. That double bye is going to be hugely valuable. The rust thing, I don't care about that. That rust thing might make up for health because you're not playing games.
A lot of coaches wondered after this year that I've talked to, like, is it better to just keep playing? Because you're already getting 2 weeks off, 3 weeks off, depending on if you play a conference championship game. So you're turning that into maybe more or less. So the idea
it's not. Listen, I think that they're being influenced by the lopsided first rounds this year. In the straight seeding, especially if we're doing the 16 where it's like 13-16, you have the double buys. Listen, it's going to be blood sport in those early games. You do not want to be playing in those games. If you can get to the round of 8, whatever we call it, the quarters, I guess, if you can get advanced there immediately, you're going to want to do that because you're not going to draw you're not going to be a 12-point favorite in these first round games anymore. That's correct. Not going to be a thing.
And that was an issue. Like talking to the Fiesta Bowl people, not as many Penn State fans bought tickets to that game, the second round Penn State Fiesta game, as they thought.
Yeah.
In part because of the distance.
Mm-hmm.
And travel is tough, but also in part, a lot of Penn State fans had just booked for Miami in the semifinal instead. They assumed they were going to beat Boise State. So that is the case for straight seeding, which I don't love, but I understand it. If I was going to do a playoff, I would keep it as is. I wouldn't change it. I don't want to
like 12 as is. I don't want to get it bigger. I want to have it smaller.
Who other than SEC athletic directors came out of this year's playoff and thought, we needed more teams. We needed that Alabama team that lost to Michigan, that South Carolina team that lost to Illinois. Like nobody wanted that. We were arguing that there were too many teams because of the blowouts in the first round. I wouldn't have changed it. I wrote this after the playoff in January. I said it was great. We don't have enough data to determine if a bye matters or not, or if this it was just a weird year. But we're going to go straight seeding. Fine. Of the two options at 16. Oh, by the way, the other reason the Big 12 and the ACC are fine with 16 now is because they're willing to just give the SEC more bids if it convinces them not to do the auto bids. Like Greg Sankey has a lot of leverage here, and so they're giving it to him.
For the record, I like the conference championship play-in weekend, but I don't like it. I like the event itself. But if the cost of that is the auto bids, I don't want to do it. Like
that's the whole reason. It's the whole reason for the auto bids.
We're sort of stuck here. I'd like if they did it and rolled the dice a little bit. They're not going to do that. So.
Yeah, it's the reason for the auto bids because otherwise, why would the SEC do it? The SEC is going to get that many teams in. Anyway.
Well, they would do it because it's good for the sport. But as Greg Sankey angrily told us, he doesn't care about what's good for the sport. To his credit, I will say, to his credit, that's not his job. Like
it sort of is. Because they signed a deal last year. They accepted the deal, the Big Ten and the SEC, that gives them the key to the playoff. Mm-hmm. They have full control over what happens in that playoff. It doesn't need to be unanimous. And so they were given this honor, this power. And the fact that at least one of them is using that power to just then benefit their own league with the auto bids is upsetting other people in that room. So I would, of the two options, the 4-4-2-2 blah blah or the 5-11, I would prefer the 5-11.
Me too.
It's going to get a lot more Big Ten and SEC teams in there. That's fine, but you have to at least pretend this game is fair, because if you don't, then you're just going to have that break off quicker than ever possible. We've had debates over placements of teams for the entire history of the sport. Like, it's not a new thing. I don't want to turn this into the NFL where we just do this and this and this and this. Nobody else in America does it. You know who does do it is the Champions League. They give out uneven bids in soccer based on how well your conference does. But even that is not guaranteed. That is depending on how your country does the previous year. You get X number of bids. I have a story on The Athletic running Friday if you want to kind of see the comparison. But
here's my question for you, Chris, because
yeah.
I tweeted about this, and I think a lot of people agreed. My biggest issue and biggest annoyance with the playoff era is every time something breaks against a conference, they freak out. The Big 12 had the Baylor TCU co-champions thing. How much was the co-champions thing really the reason why neither of those teams got in over Ohio State? I don't know. I think Ohio State winning their championship game 59-0 or whatever they did was a big part of that. And then this co-champion nonsense. Well, they decide we got to play a title game. Okay. Regardless of one true champion. Regardless of the financial implications of that down the road, the reason they did it was because of the playoff, because they didn't want to have co-champions. Okay. The ACC, now all of a sudden, Florida, the Florida State debacle happens, and now Florida State's looking around being like, we can't even be in the ACC. This league sucks. We got to get out of here. Or did your quarterback get hurt?
Then they went 2-10.
Then they went 2-10. But like, again, we're not going to go hindsight. We're going to say in the moment. The SEC, this feels like the thinnest case ever. Are they overreacting, Chris, to like all of a sudden the committee doesn't respect our strength of schedule?
The SEC is complaining way more than the ACC complained about Florida State.
Yeah,
which has been a problem for Florida State fans.
Yes,
it was in the law. It was even in the lawsuit.
Yes,
but yes, the ACC should have complained more. But this goes back to what we talked about in the old podcast, which is like the SEC media machine. Like, they dominated this week, and it's a credit to that. Here's the thing. Here's
everyone talks. The coaches talk.
Here's my
talk, and Sankey talks like every day.
And it's good. And it's good. And this is my other takeaway from the weekend is that the SEC did a lot of complaining and whining this week. But you know what? At least they're talking about it.
Yeah.
At least they're making their case. Because you know who's not? The Big Ten. The one who's actually pushing the auto bids. That's not the SEC's idea. Yeah. Greg Sankey even said, basically, I'm the one kind of up here taking the arrows, but I'm not the one fully pushing this. And he's right about that.
Yes.
And so at the Big 12 here, folks are talking. Good. I told everybody in the playoffs 6 months ago when I'm sitting outside these meetings, they come out of the meetings and they don't want to talk. And then people will talk on background. And I'm like, you guys have to have this debate in public. It's good. You can't just sneak in a gigantic playoff change and then think it's going to work. And now it's been forced upon them because they waited so long. They couldn't get to something that now we're talking about it in public. The coaches are talking about, the ADs are talking about, the commissioners are talking about it. The Big Ten's still not talking about it. And that's my biggest problem is that this is Tony Petitti's idea. Get out there and make your case. Don't have the PR person call a reporter to make the case for this is why the model is good, which happens a lot.
Oh, it does happen.
So credit the SEC for talking about it, because that's how we need to do this. So it's part of why, but it's better than alternative.
It's part of what makes the SEC meetings worthwhile. Like, I've been a handful of times. A lot of people go. So SEC media days, mostly worthless. It's 1,000 reporters. There's no actual access. You can't really talk to people. But SEC meetings, the SEC has a very strict rule. Only 2 reporters per outlet. And it's like a lot of people that like their whole job is covering like that program or SEC football. It's not a lot of like riffraff in the room. It's a smaller group. So like when Sankey's talking to reporters, you don't get a whole lot of like dumb questions. It's like a lot of like experienced, smart reporters asking smart questions. And like, yes, there's some homerism in some of the guys that are down there, but like ultimately it's really worthwhile because it's a smaller group. And then you can have some of these conversations, like you said, where Sankey's talking every day well, when he says something, it sort of spawns a debate, and then we can bring some of these questions back up, and he's going to respond to some of those the next day, and then the next day, and then it's like a full conversation like you saw this week about the SEC, and the SEC driving the conversation, like you said, despite not even really being the architect of some of this. So
because the SEC is doing, it's acting like a professional organization. And that's what a lot of different parts of college football need to do. This is a sport that forever was just decided in the back rooms and all that kind of stuff. It's not that anymore. And the SEC has been way ahead of that for a long time. They dominated this week. Everybody's talking about the SEC. Are they complaining too much? Is it a bad look? Yes, but we're still talking about them. And that's ultimately really important. And so we'll talk more about the playoff stuff as it shakes out. There's some more stuff coming out of the meetings. We'll talk about that next week, but we don't want to go too long on the show. But we're going to wrap up real quick here with some news that came out Thursday with the final segment of the show. One cool thing. And those dudes have changed the Hall of Fame criteria for coaches. We've talked about this before. The requirement for coaches to get in, like 20 years ago, they put this in. You have to have won 60% of your games.
Objectively, a dumb rule.
Well, they were the NFF. I asked them. I wrote a story about this last year about the Mike Leach conundrum, because Mike Leach died. If he had won one more game, he would have been at 600 winning percentage. He would have been eligible. And they realized that was a problem, that they were going to probably have to tweak some stuff to get him in, because he obviously deserves to get in. He changed the sport. On Thursday, they changed that to 59.5% winning percentage. So Mike Leach is now eligible. He's not eligible yet because it's like 3 years past your last game is when you get on the clock. So I think we have to wait one more year till Leach is on the clock, I think. But he will be eligible to get into the Hall of Fame. He's probably going to get in. You know who else is just short of 60%? I didn't realize. Kirk Ferentz. He's at 59.8, I think is what it was. Okay. So I think this
might get there, maybe.
Yeah. Look, College Football Hall of Fame is hard because there's so many players and coaches and teams, and you can't put everybody in. I get it. I do wish there exceptions would be made for people like Mike Leach, who coached at Washington State.
This is again,
I think there should be an exception for Howard Schnellenberger. I think Howard Schnellenberger should have an exception and get in. There's some others, Irk Russell maybe. Ultimately, this is good. It's not the perfect solution to everything, but I'm glad the Hall of Fame did this.
There's no reason to have these you have to be, is it a consensus All-American that you have to be, or make one team? Yes. I forget what the rules are.
Might be consensus, yeah.
Yeah. It's like, okay, I get why that's there. The winning percentage thing, I get why that's there. When we're talking about, just for coaches, okay, there's not a lot of players that we're going to fight for. Like maybe, you're an incredible quarterback, but Cam Newton played the same season, whatever.
If you look at the list of players on the ballot every year, it's so long.
Yeah,
it's like
it's crazy.
You can't pick everybody. It's tough.
But the coaches, one, it doesn't take into account their work as an assistant, which I think matters. And it doesn't take into account, especially in Mike Leach's case, your impact on the sport. This is why the winning percentage thing is so it's not arbitrary. I mean, it is sort of an arbitrary line to draw. There's no point. Why don't we just get rid of it and then decide the coaches on their own merit? I think voters can decide. I don't even know exactly who votes on this. I don't vote on it. I vote on a lot of stuff, but I don't. No,
it's the National Football Foundation, and then I think Hall of Famers have a vote. I don't.
I'm gonna get an angry email from the NFF because I don't know who votes on the Hall of Fame. Either way, the ceremony that they do in December in Vegas is pretty cool. Having guys come and get officially inducted, but I don't like the arbitrary let this stuff stand on its own. I'm sure there's a lot of coaches that had a lot of influence on the game. Guys that brought new scheme to the sport that spread. Obviously Mike Leach is the biggest one of those, but guys that did that and maybe didn't have a ton of success on their own. Is Hal Mummy in? I think he's in, right? That's
no,
Leach's.
He's still coaching, I think, or he was recently.
I think he is still coaching some Kentucky, another small Kentucky school. But I'm just saying, guys that were schematic innovators. I'd like to see them get more run. And a lot of those guys don't. Mike Leach never coached at the Blue Bloods, Yeah. He was sort of within a whisker of the Tennessee job, which would have been hilarious. But he's at Washington State. He's at Texas Tech. He's at Mississippi State. These are places where it's hard to win. If you play a coach at those three places for 20-something years and you got a 59% winning percentage, you're a pretty dang good coach. And like,
Yeah.
I just don't. There's no the arbitrary line makes no sense, and I think guys
Yeah.
are getting done. That said, I don't particularly care about Hall of Fames. These coaches existed. We can watch them. YouTube exists. I know they existed. It's fine.
Hell, Mummy. It looks like his last coaching job was 2021 with the spring league, that developmental league. So I don't think he is still coaching. But no, you make a good point. Like, we have Urban Meyer and Nick Saban going in the same class this year. Like that's. Whenever you look at those classes, you're like, that's a lot of really good. Like, I understand the bar being high. I think you can make the case that like the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame and maybe even the Basketball Hall of Fame maybe lower the bar. You know who should be in the College Football Hall of Fame is Pete Rose. Let's do that. Let's put him in that Hall of Fame.
I'm up for it. Let's do it. I think the functionality, like I'm low key an anti Hall of Fame guy because it's like I don't really get the point. Like I can appreciate you. Like if I'm a player, getting that honor would mean a lot to me. As a fan of the sport, I don't particularly care who's in or who's not in. Like I can appreciate what you did for the sport. Again, YouTube exists, like all those things. So
this is the one cool thing. It's supposed to be cool, the Hall of Fame conversation. And now you just.
I'm glad. No, listen. I'm glad they changed the rules because what does that do? What does changing the rules do, Chris? This is why it's one cool thing. It shows me that you respect what Mike Leach did for the sport, and that is very cool.
And Kirk Ferentz.
And I'm glad that you can change. And Kirk Ferentz. I'm glad that you can change the rules to show respect for a coach who obviously deserves to be in the Hall of Fame. I don't think any normal cultural fan would debate that. And so that shows me that you respected that. Regardless of what I think about the Hall of Fame itself, I'm glad to see whatever we want to call it. It's not a governing body, whatever, a institution in college football be flexible to fix it.
All right, we're going to wrap up the show here. By the way, Alvin, I'm at my hotel you know what I'm looking at right now on my television screen? You know what
Mickey Mouse, I'm guessing.
The New York Knicks beat the Indiana Pacers, and they're outside Madison Square Garden, and it is packed.
I feel jobbed. We missed out on this.
We were there for the loss.
We were there for the saddest Knicks debacle ever. It was
we were a week too early out in front of Madison Square Garden. So, by the way,
I wanted revelry, and I got very much sadness. So
we something we said we had to get on the show after last week or last episode. We now have it on the show.
Run the ball.
Brent Key. Your drop is now on the bunch. So that's going to do it here. Thanks, everybody. Again, please subscribe wherever you get podcasts, YouTube. We've got a link tree run. You can find this. You should be able to find this podcast pretty much anywhere. If you can't, let us know. Subscribe on YouTube. Leave us a review, please. 5-star review. They really help. It's just Dave and I doing this together. We just started this thing, starting this back up. We've been loving the feedback from everybody so far. I want this to be a big part of this. Next week, I'll have an interview also with Ben Hauermiller, who we mentioned from EA Sports. I talked to him today. We didn't have time to fit it on this show because we had so much to talk about. Yeah. He'll be on the show next week. Thanks everybody for listening, and we will talk to you next week.